Welcome to the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. I'm thrilled you're here. My name is Jason Elkins, and in addition to being your host, I'm also a former U.S. Army paratrooper, third-generation commercial hot air balloon pilot, paramotor pilot, ex-Montana fly fishing guide, advanced open water scuba diver, and a full-time nomad that's visited more than 30 countries on 6 continents. As a seasoned adventure travel expert with a passion for creating and sharing meaningful experiences, I'm on a quest to impact the lives of adventure travelers, the tour operators they rely on, and the communities that host them. Every week, I bring you exclusive interviews with fascinating adventure tourism experts who have agreed to share their personal stories, favorite destinations, and some invaluable travel insights they've picked up along the way. We'll enjoy a casual conversation, create some connections, and likely share some laughs. It's my hope that by the end of each episode, this big world will feel just a bit smaller. Let's get started, shall we? Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. So happy to have each and every one of you back today. And I'm also super excited because I've got Sharyn Means here with me. Sharyn is the CEO of Dove's Rest Cabins. Sharyn, welcome. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too. Thank you.
Yeah, this is going to be quite a pleasure. You're doing something a little different than some of our guests that we've had on the show, but you and I had a nice conversation last time a couple weeks ago, and I just thought, you're an interesting person, and I do believe that what you guys are doing are of interest to a lot of the listeners of the show. So I'm really appreciate you taking time to come back and chat with me.
Well,
Fun to be. Yeah, cool. Before we get too far into, I'm really interested in your story. Like I mentioned, you're an interesting person. I want to kind of dig into you and figure out what got you from where you were to where you are now. But before we do that, let's give everybody kind of the 30 to 60 second elevator pitch on what is Dove's Rest Cabins.
Dove's Rest Cabins is a mixture of 20 different cabins, 6 different wedding ceremony areas, a venue patio, and it's all mixed in with nature. Everything here is about natural. Everything is about peace and serenity and enjoying the beauty of the natural elements within the Palo Duro Canyon. And then adding some very unique art and different things that you're going to find here that you wouldn't find anywhere else.
Okay. Well, that's a good point for me to ask you. When you say anywhere else, where are you located?
We are located on the rim of the Palo Duro Canyon. So if you don't know where that is, it is 35 minutes southwest of Amarillo, right at the very top of the panhandle of Texas. So we're remote, but you're still pretty close to towns and cities. But when you get out here, you just don't believe that there is anybody else anywhere near you.
That's my favorite type of place. Tell me this, do you use, I'm trying to figure out which word you use that most closely aligns with what you're doing. So there's words like resort, there's words like lodge, there's probably other words, but is there a word that you feel aligns with what you're doing?
Probably resort.
Okay.
The level of service and concierge service that we do and our capabilities in everything from ensuring a couple can have a peaceful time right through to doing 150, 200 guest wedding, business groups. So we've taken what everybody originally thought was a short-term rental type venture and turned it into an inclusive but not inclusive. So you can have everything you want. It's just not here sitting in your face in a big building. So the restaurant's not here, but tell you what, our private chef drives up to your cabin, you would think you're in a restaurant with what he gives you. So anything that you want or need, there is a 99.9% chance our concierge and our guest services team is going to be able to put it in your cabin.
Wow. Okay. And I bet there's some stories there, and hopefully we'll come back to those in just a minute. Because I've worked in a remote place. I managed a small, we probably also used the term resort, but it was 30 miles offshore in Belize. And it wasn't always possible when people, hey, can we have guacamole tonight? It's 30 miles on a boat to go into town to get some avocados, and they're not actually that
common in Belize as there in most of Central America. So I get that can be a challenge. Let's real quick also touch on what kind of activities, what can people do there besides just totally chill out and disconnect?
And you've got everything from horseback riding in the canyon to Jeep tours to museums. The Panhandle of Texas has some of the most incredible museums, and there's art galleries. You've got the Texas Musical that plays down in the canyon in the open amphitheater. And if you've never been and listened or been part of watching a play in an open amphitheater that's inside the canyon, so the acoustics by using the canyon walls just makes the listening an experience. The show is the history of how, Goodnight settled here, how the West was was settled here, the Indian wars that took place here, and how hard it was. And, really what I was going to say our ancestors, because I am an American now, but your ancestors, what they did to create and build this part of the country was phenomenal. When you see what those canyon walls are and go, they came over here on a horse and cart. I don't even want to walk it, let alone bring a cart down here. So there is just so much history here, and that play gives you a very broad window of it. So it is a big attraction to hear.
Okay. Yeah, that's very cool.
But yeah, the off-roading, the hiking, the mountain biking, we have a lot of events out here with mountain biking. It is very much an active place. And then what we provide you with is that quiet solitude to come back and relax or soak in the hot tub or just wander around the walking trails that we've created. We heard a lot. We listened to our guests, and we heard a lot. We have a lot of older guests, and we have a lot of younger guests that have smaller children, 4 or 5 years old, and they can't walk. They can't do the hikes a great deal. So we've just finished another section of trails that takes you down and sits you right on the edge of the canyon. And listening to the kids come back and so excited that they got to see right down inside a canyon is very rewarding. And so as guests give us ideas, we look at a way of being able to do something to achieve it for them.
Yeah, it's very cool. And I bet a lot of these kids, this is the first time maybe they're being exposed to something like that. Just, if they're living in the city or whatever, it sounds like. So there's the term, we discussed terms. There's a term called, dude ranch, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Does that apply to what you're doing? Do you use that term sometimes?
No, because a lot of the activities that we do and that we help people access are all within a couple of mile radius, but, in most parts for them to get to. What we do here is try to keep it more surreal, more just where the guests that are here to be quiet are not disturbed by the noise of an off-roader. But the off-roader only needs to go 500 feet down the main road and they can go jeep touring through the canyon. So it was finding a balance to be able to let people do what they want to do, not be dictated to.
Right. That's super cool. That was, I think, we covered a lot of really cool stuff. I know we're going to come back to some of that, but I also want to make sure we get into, like you mentioned, you're a U.S. citizen now, but I hear in your voice, and we discussed this last time. Let's dig into your story. Where did this all start for you?
Was born in New Zealand. So, and again, it's probably like Palo Canyon. A lot of people don't know where it is. And
New Zealand or the town?
New Zealand. You'll be amazed.
Yeah.
People, that's near England, isn't it? And I'm like, no, you're on the wrong side of the world. I actually got asked on that accent. Somebody thought I was Irish, and I just looked at them and I'm like, you've never left your hometown, because a New Zealander and an Irish accent couldn't be the most different in the entire world. But, we are down under. We are at the bottom of the earth. So growing up, my husband and I talk and he'll mention things, certain types of cereals or TV shows. And I'm like, we never got that. We had one TV channel until the late 70s. That was it. And it finished at 10 o'clock at night. It just stopped.
Oh.
So I grew up in a very, very low key farming town. So my childhood was very much outdoors, very much in the farming situation. Riding a tricycle to school at 5 years old, you just can't even imagine that here.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I'd call myself a tomboy, but I was very active, always outside. And I actually spent more time with my dad working on building and cars and in the garden. I'd mow the lawns before I'd bake a cake. So that kind of created me into being more interested in construction and building. And I love building things.
Yeah.
I did try the girl type job. I worked in a bank for about 6 months and kind of like, this is not me. So I've come from a very strong construction project management background. So very logistical, very analytical, very detailed and process driven. But
You mentioned your dad. Sharyn, you'd mentioned your dad was, that you're spending time with him, building projects, cars and stuff like that. Was that his work, or was he a farmer? What was his
he was an
job?
engineer.
He was. Okay. That makes sense. Did you have a chance to travel? Did your parents talk about traveling? Was that a big thing as you were growing up?
In the 60s and 70s, no. It really, like I said, we're so far away from everything that traveling, the only place you really could fly to comfortably back then was Australia. So we did some trips to Australia. It wasn't until the late 80s that really started getting those long haul flights. And that's when the first time I got on a plane to come to the States.
Okay, how old? Maybe I shouldn't ask this question, but how old were you the first time you went somewhere other than Australia?
28.
Okay, all right. And maybe your parents didn't care at that point. I don't know, but was that like a big thing for you to be going off to the U.S. or?
Yeah, considering I was.
Were they?
Yeah, I was here for quite some time. So yeah, and it was a lot different then. Now I can messenger with my mom and I can FaceTime her. Back then it was still the connected, pick up the phone and dial the number, and writing letters. Really, what was it, 89, 90 when the first lot of MS computers came in. So there was, it was good old writing letters home and sending stuff. It very, very different to now, but yeah, it was.
But were they excited? Were they supportive of this, or did you get a little bit of?
Yeah.
Why do you have to go so far away?
They were supportive, but they were also, I think, very anxious. But they never stopped us from doing anything. If we had a goal or we wanted to do something, they let us go. And that was the same as, climbing trees, putting a towel around your neck and jumping off the garage roof and being Superman. Like, my poor mother, my brother and I must have given her so many heart attacks, but they let us experience to learn. And you only did something stupid at once.
Well, maybe you only did something stupid once. I've been known to take 3 or 4 times before I realized I shouldn't do that again. But
yeah.
No, there's a common thread in the people that I work around. I know the people you've worked around, and definitely people we've had on the show, is that just kind of like got to be a little outside the comfort zone and go do things that maybe the rest of the world doesn't think we should be doing, or whatever. And that's definitely a common thread that I've seen come up through the show. And you also mentioned construction and engineering type of stuff. What did you end up, uh, what were you studying in school? What did you do? What were you doing in school? Did you have a job working something before you picked up and went to the US?
And well, yeah, I did. Like I said, I did the bank and did the normal sort of girl type stuff and retail, but it just.
I'm happy you're saying that. I'm not going to get away with saying that.
But I couldn't sit still. There was something that just wasn't. It's like there was an itch, I've got to do more. And so I did work for a window company, and that's where I started getting more involved in the project management and that sort of stuff. And then when I came to the US, I came with my, at that time, husband. And so I got to work while I was here. We were here for nearly 10 years. But that's where I really started getting into the construction, roofing companies, construction companies, project management, and just everything settled down. It was like, now I don't have to put together furniture when it arrives. And I was trying to get fixes in other places to do what I wanted to do. But I loved being in construction. I really enjoyed project management.
What was it, do you think? What was the draw now that you've had some time to reflect? And I know I sometimes reflect back on some of the things I was doing. Could you put your finger on what it was about construction that did it for you?
Yeah, there's no drama. It's black and white. Point A and point B is the only way you can join it together. You can't throw another piece in there and expect it to work. There is a methodology to how everything fits together, whether it's a window, whether it's a roof, whether it's a house, whether it's a piece in your car. You can only put certain things together. So it was always very structured, processed, and detailed. You can't take a 1/2-inch hole and try and put a 3/4-inch screw in it, because it's not going to work. There was no drama. It was always laid out. It was drawn out. It was set out. And I think that's what I liked, was it was so much, it aligned with the analytical and logical part of my brain.
So the question that seems obvious to me, in my mind is obvious, is that what you just described sounds a stark contrast to dealing with guests. And most of the listeners to this show know exactly why I'm asking this question, is how do you reconcile that? And because guests at a resort or in any sort of hospitality industry they don't fit in the way that there's no like, hey, fits with me.
And, I actually never imagined myself in hospitality. Okay. And it was never something I even investigated doing. But I think what it is my upbringing and my New Zealand culture is taking, what we offer here is what we've really labeled Kia Oro service, which is Kia Oro is the spirit of welcoming somebody, generosity, respect, and kindness. And those are not elements that you can get trained in, but they're elements I was brought up with. Mm-hmm. I was raised in that environment. Really, it just came natural to me, to the fact that that's how I like being treated. Mm-hmm. And when you come into my home, which the resort is, I'm going to treat you like my family. I'm going to treat you with that same wellness and kindness and generosity that I do when my family comes here. And so I didn't even have to think about it. I just did it. And it was my staff and my husband that just sort of said, how do you do that? And do what? How do you take somebody from being so upset that you could see it in their face to next thing that wanting to give you a hug? And I'm like, you just respect them. I said you respect people and you listen to what they've got to say and you put yourself in their shoes. And initially, we all react. We all react to situations, but actually stopping and listening is a skill that a lot of people are losing. And just being able to do that allows our guests to feel like, man, I was made to feel so welcome. And I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to tip the person to make them like me. I just had to show up at the gate. So I've worked a lot with our staff in that same respect, is just show respect, show generosity, show kindness, and never, ever say no. The word no does not exist here. The word maybe does. But because until you research it and you know for sure, but don't just initially, because you're not having a good day saying, no, you can't have that. Well, that's not that person's fault. It's your fault.
Yeah. Do you think that your attitude and approach, because you mentioned kind of your background in New Zealand, I'm curious if you were to split it up in percentages, what percentage is just New Zealand? Is there a Maori influence? Is it just your family spending time outdoors? What is it? Or is it just a mix?
It's kind of a mix. The Maori culture is very, very strong in New Zealand. And back in the 60s and 70s when I was a child, and that's your formative years. Once you reach a teenager, you don't listen to anything. Doesn't matter who you are. Well, I know I didn't.
I think you're right, though. Based on my own personal experience, I think you're right on that. Pretty much all teenagers.
Yeah, no, it was just, the Maori culture has its own formalities, and a lot of that I was not raised with because my parents are not, but all of their beliefs and cultural aspects at that time were just integrated in the whole society. It's just how everybody was. So being in a small town, pretty much everybody knew that I was Robert and Betty's daughter, which was great when you were young, but as a teenager,
not so good as a teenager.
No.
Did your parents, I'm curious, my grandparents used to do this to me. I used to spend a lot of time with them in a small town. And it was pretty much every time I left the house, it's like, remember, like my grandfather was, remember, I know everybody in this town. So if you do anything that you shouldn't be doing, I'm going to hear about it. That was a constant reminder.
Yeah, I got reminded of that. My dad was one of 7 and my mum was one of 7. And pretty much all of them lived in that same town as well. So, I mean, I had 28 people between aunties and uncles who were scattered throughout that town. So there wasn't even a safe zone. There wasn't even a place that you could go to that you could kind of maybe think nobody would be around there. So, but really is how I was brought up. And I didn't realize I had so much of that influence. And so when I retired, courtesy of my husband, and I was just meant to be involved in some of the back office stuff. Somehow or other, I went from 4 weeks of retirement to CEO running the whole resort. And he looked at me and he said, can you do it? And I'm like, I guess so. I mean, hey, I'll take on any challenge. But what it has done is it's allowed me to bring the Kia Oro service in, but then my logical, analytical, process-driven part of me, which is a very strong part, has taken us to the next level. It's taken us into developing a strong website, marketing, processes, operation processes. So when you look at part of our plan for our future growth and being able to do that, you've got to have strong processes in place to be able to offer that service. So it's become quite a mix. And the hospitality side, I didn't know I had it, but it's not a skill I've learned. It's a skill I grew up with. So it's embedded. I had one guest say to me, you can't learn what I do because it's just who I am. It's like trying to mimic somebody. You can get it 80%, but you can't get everything that they bring to it.
Right. And it sounds like, because I know a lot of tour operators that maybe the people part, they've got it. They were born with it. They got that all figured out. But where they lack is in the systems, the processes, the marketing. So they're constantly working really, really hard. They're really good at the people part, but the bank account hasn't been balanced in 3 months. And other guides are trying to figure out, well, am I working tomorrow? Am I not working tomorrow? And it sounds like you bring a unique mix of that part, whereas most tour operators need to go find a partner that can do that. They're going to go find the project manager, the engineer, the systems person in order to make it work. And it sounds like you're very fortunate to have just built it.
I mean, I came into this with thinking it was all going to be my project detail mind, and the other stuff just flowed.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even realize half the time what I was doing. It wasn't till a couple of staff and my husband kind of said to me, how did you do that? How do you get off the phone or walk away from them and now they're your best friend? Whereas they were ready to tear my head off. And I really had to stop and analyze what I'd done and thought about it and tried to work it out. And then it was actually Jeff that said to me, he said, it's just who you are. He said, how you were brought up.
Which is probably a challenge for someone that is so analytical, engineer type of brain, because when someone says, how did you do that? You're like, I don't know, let me figure it out analytically.
I know, I was trying.
A equals B equals C, because if I can figure it out, then I can train my staff to do it. I can build it into the systems and da 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 da. But it's counterintuitive because it's not one of those things you can really figure it out, because the subtleties, just the micro expressions in people's faces. How do you train somebody when somebody's left eye gets a little tight? That means that they're getting ready to get upset. So you need to do this, you need to do that. It doesn't, flow charts don't work really well when it comes to, interpersonal communication, diagrams, schematics, blueprints. So I hear you. And if you want to have a team and you've got a large place there, it's obviously not just you and your husband. So how do you use that?
Yeah. So my team, I spend a lot of time with them, even just in fun stuff. I get out and I work with them hands-on an awful lot too. And so in general conversation, sometimes rather than sitting down in a classroom, everyday experiences are teachable in different ways. So we have a lot of fun when we do stuff. But at that same time, teaching them to watch body language. And they practice on each other in regards to how they're reacting to something, how they're handling something. And just having some of those resources in place, when you can make a difficult job enjoyable and fun and achievable, then you can actually help someone create a better response to negative stuff. So, that's been where I've put a lot of time and effort in, and I've split people's roles up. I've watched them and kind of worked out personalities. And, our concierge guest services group and wedding coordinator, she just loves that. You can just see in her eyes, I've got to put this wedding night cabin together, and I'm going to put lights here, and I'm going to put roses here, and I'm going to do this. And it's like she's in this whole bubble of excitement. And that little bubble of excitement then makes her excited to talk to every single person that comes up. So it's finding the role for the right person. And once you do that, you can help them create their own Kia Oro service. because they're excited about it.
I'm curious because as I listen to you discuss this, I know there's tools out there. We can call them psychometrics, like, personality styles tests. There's DISC assessments. There's Myers-Briggs. There's, the 5 personalities. I'm curious, do you implement any of that in your training with the team or in hiring or anything?
And I kind of do some of those questions when I'm hiring, if it's for more of a management team level. But, talking to somebody face to face and working alongside them, you can learn so much more than a written test because you're getting their instant reaction. You're not getting them going, am I empathetic or sympathetic? Or, it's like, I'm seeing how you react. I'm watching your body language. I'm feeling any kind of vibe you have. And so that's where I think, because Jeff and I are so hands-on here with our staff and with our guests, we actually just listen and learn to recognize things and then be able to help.
So I suspect, and I appreciate that response, and I suspect that for you, it feels very natural to spend some time with somebody and figure them out. And okay, what are they likely to need in this moment, or how are they going to respond? But it's not that way for everybody. And it's hard to hire a whole staff of people that can do that. So I guess the follow-up question is, do you feel that some of those tools, so for example, I worked in real estate for a few years, and my team leader really pushed on us understanding the different personality styles. Specifically, we used one called the DISC assessment. There was, direct and driven, the interpersonal people, the security-based people, and the cautious analytical types, so that when we met somebody, we could fairly quickly figure out, okay, this person's more worried about cautious and analytical. So they need to know that this horseback riding trip is going to be from such and such a time to such and such, and we can experience this, and this is what's going to happen when we get back. And then there's other types like me, my personality is like, hey, this sounds like fun. Let's go. And I don't care when we come back.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so I'm just curious, like, do you have systems in place or ways to help teach your staff to kind of recognize those things in clients, or is it just by spending so much time around you?
It's a bit of both. So there's really only 3 of us that are involved all the time with any kind of guest contact. So, and one of them, she started as a cleaner with us. Now, our cleaners and our maintenance guys, they never really have any contact with the guests. They're here, when a guest leaves, and they leave before the next guest arrives. So that's a whole different section of our business. But the two women, actually, they're grown women that are part of our management team, they are the ones that I work with. Now, yes, we do different training programs, but we kind of focus those normally all together. Brandy started as a cleaner with us 3.5 years ago. And as I've watched her develop and we've given her little steps of growth, now she could run this whole place.
Mm-hmm.
And again, short bursts of phone calls and guest contacts, then evaluate, short bursts, evaluate. Now, both of those ladies handle the phones. They deal with guest contact. So I was pretty lucky in my hiring and then pretty smart on how I brought them through, to the fact that hiring somebody and just giving them 10 pages of written instructions and this is how you do it isn't how I work.
Right.
They've still got the 10 pages of written instructions, but
of course you do, because you're an engineer type.
They have to.
You probably do have flowcharts and spreadsheets, right?
Yeah, only a couple. But I've got a lot of spreadsheets. We work a lot off spreadsheets. The 3 of us actually all like spreadsheets. We use them a lot. But it's more just developing them step by step. I think sometimes too much is dumped on people at once rather than, it's like when you're going up a flight of stairs, you don't start on the bottom one and jump to step number 10. We take one step at a time. And, maybe step 1, 2, and 3, you can get through pretty quickly. But letting people master and guide them through each section of whatever their role is, or allowing them to be immersed in a situation that may only pop up once more in the whole time they're here, that is how we've been able to train, not even train or teach, instill in both Brandy and Ashley how it needs to work here, and how we want it to work. And not because it's a rule, but it's just because who we are.
Yeah. You know what came up for me when you're describing that, the steps analogy is actually just this past weekend. I'm in Quito, Ecuador, and a friend invited me to go to a bachata lesson. I thought it was put up as a lesson. So in my mind, lesson means we're going to start with step 1, and I quickly realized shortly after we got there, this was more of an advanced technique lesson. And I remember the thought I was having, and I'm very open to experiences. I've done all kinds of weird stuff, and my comfort zone is very, very flexible. But even then, I'll tell you, walking into a room full of people, they all speak Spanish much better than I do because they were born with that language and these advanced steps that they were doing. And I remember feeling this almost the fight or flight trigger, like, oh my gosh, I need to get out of here quick. And thinking, if I could just practice, a really, really basic thing for a while and work my way up, this would be great. But I was feeling like I need to get out of here. And that's something that just happens in life. I'm talking about a dance class, but that could be a new job. You show up for a new job first day, and the person that's supposed to be training you is like, okay, here's how you do it, bam, 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 and now show me how you create the pivot table on the spreadsheet so we can figure out, how many onions we should order for dinner service, and you're just like totally overwhelmed. And one of two things that's going to probably happen: the fight or flight is like, whoa, get me out of here, or you just dig in your heels. Like, looking for all kinds of reasons that this is not going to work and these people are crazy here. And I think that's super relevant to hiring and training.
Yeah. And we all fail. We all have things that we fail at, but we actually don't mind a bit of failure here, because when you fail, you learn.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of encourage that. But I have a fantastic team. We have a head of maintenance as well, and he's involved a lot with the three of us. He's slightly outnumbered, but he copes very well. But then him and I get our time together, and it's like, hey, we've got to build this, and and I'm sitting out there doing stuff with him, and so that's my fix on that side. But he also gets excited when we have a big event, because he gets to be involved with creating this stuff for the girls. And so they work very, very well as a team, and they are so obliging to the guests. And that is the big thing for me. And for Jeff. Jeff's the visionary of this team. He can picture things that it takes me a little while to, I kind of put it through the process brain, and then I do sometimes say, well, you can't do that. It is physically not possible to do that. Let's tweak it. But from his original vision, we always end up with something really cool, at the end.
What was his background?
His background, he actually was 30 plus years in the incentive business. He's been to 50 different countries around the world.
Okay, wow.
He had some very big clients, number of large clients. So he got to experience worldwide 5-star accommodation, 5-star hotels, resorts. He's done the Amazon with a tour group. that he took over there. And he always thought his end game would be a bed and breakfast. Yeah, I'm just going to chill. Well, kind of didn't happen that way.
Yeah, you guys went a little overboard, didn't you?
Little overboard. But him and I both have a passion for the land. And so being able to incorporate luxury cabins that are still feel like a family type situation, but putting it in the middle of nature. And so Jeff's right now his passion, and it has been for a long time, at this landscaping. He's creating an area out there that is a mixture of natural elements, keeping the land natural. I actually never ever realized that landscaping is harder to keep something natural than it is to plant a garden. I mean, we spend a lot of time and a lot of money on keeping things in their natural environment. Kids are getting to see lizards and geckos and doves and birds and aoudad. We have the aoudad running around there, and they're so friendly. So they're
What is it?
aoudad.
Okay, tell me about that. I thought I knew everything about everything, but maybe not.
So
What's an aoudad?
aoudad is like a Barbary sheep. Okay.
They're not native to that area, are they?
No, they got imported here, and now they've overrun the place. So we've got the white-tailed deer and the mule deer, but they run in herds, and of course you have the buck, and then you've got the does and the babies. But they're so used to us out here now that they'll just stand there and look at you. And if, heaven forbid they want to cross the road, the buck will stand in the middle of the road and he will let everybody walk single aisle across that road. And you have to sit there and wait for them.
Yep.
But the guests love them because they're so unique. The babies are just so cute. But there's about 5 different herds. We do feed them. So we bring them out from 7 a.m. in the morning, 5 p.m. at night, and they're waiting about 30, 45 minutes before feed time. They start gathering in different areas. So there are things that we've created, they were here, but we've created it more to where it can be a guest experience. And for those hunters that are listening, no, there are signs around here that says hunting not permitted. And
that's a good point. I'm happy you brought that up. So what I hear you saying is you don't host hunters, even if they're going to go off site to hunt, or
they can go off site. Yes.
Yeah.
You're just not allowed to, on the counter that's sitting there where you can view stuff. It's, it really is a great place to set up that scope and gun, and that's not permitted.
Okay. And probably bringing their game back and hanging it out in front of their cabin is probably frowned on as well.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. I like to ask the hard-hitting questions. Let's cut to the chase. And another question that I really probably should ask, if you're open to discussing it, I'm sure you are. We actually touched on this last time we spoke, was I'm sure there's people listening North Texas, out in the wilderness, lizards, birds, deer, all this stuff. What about the things that some people really do not want to see? So snakes, spiders, stuff like that. So what do you want to share with the person that's listening to this saying, I'd love to go there, but?
Okay, so we obviously have just brown snakes, normal snakes that aren't going to hurt us, but they are part of the environment. Every single creature is part of the environment. They have a reason for being there. We do have rattlesnakes here. However, around the resort and around the cabins, we do use a snake away. And we are very vigilant on making sure that is kept up once a week and it's done.
And snake away, you told me last time, because I asked about this, was snake away is not a toxic. It's not a poison. It's just a deterrent that's natural. It's a natural substance that keeps them away, right?
Yeah. So spiders, look, you've got the normal daddy long legs and whatever, but we do have tarantulas. Now, for people that don't know, they're not going to hurt you. They are big. I think they're beautiful. Some people.
Not so easy to convince people that because I've spent a lot of time in places where they have tarantulas and people are like, oh, they won't hurt you. Okay, well.
Yeah, but they're an incredible creature. You will predominantly see them more September, maybe early October. And typically it's the males because that is mating season. But, everybody needs to put it into context. Once he's found that female, he's dead. I mean, she kills him. Let him cross the road without squashing them, please. But
That's a whole other conversation for a whole other podcast. But I did not know that.
yeah. So, he is
So
just
be nice. Let him do his thing. He doesn't have much longer
do
to
his
do it.
thing then and just move on. But you'll see them early in the morning when it's cooler, but they're not going to hurt you. And we do have coyotes here. Again, you might be fortunate enough to see one or two. They're not going to come near the cabins, but you can sit on your patio at night, or if you're an early riser like we are, and you'll hear that the packs sound off, and that is pretty cool to hear. From our patio out in that direction of the canyon, there's 5 packs, and they work from right to left, and each one will sound off. It's like a morning roll call.
Wow.
And it's pretty cool.
That's very cool.
Very, very rarely will you see them. You'll occasionally see them maybe scooting across a pasture or something like that. But again, they stay away.
I should be relaxed. I shouldn't probably even ask this, but I know that when you deal with people at a certain place, you get questions that some people might say, well, this is the number one dumb question we get. But we're not going to use the word dumb because if you don't know, you don't know. But I'm sure, I see the look on your face. I'm sure there's this one that just popped in your head that people ask you on occasion. But we're going to reframe this. We're not going to say it's a dumb question, but what's the question that sometimes people ask you that you want to just go ahead and give people the answer now so that when they show up, they don't feel embarrassed when they sit down and ask it at the dinner table?
Yeah, you asked one. We get so many.
Remember, you get so many, but they're not dumb questions.
No, they're not.
Okay, give me a few.
One of them is, does the AC work? And I'm like, yeah. But I think what highlights that is they've been to other places that they've determined as an Airbnb or a short-term rental, and the AC didn't work. So a lot of the questions we get actually have stories behind them to why we get those dumb questions.
Do you sometimes just say no? Does the AC work? No.
No. But
And they'd be like, oh, okay, we didn't think so. It didn't work at the last 3 places we were at either. So that's interesting.
yeah, and it really is just general reassurance questions that to us sometimes do sound silly. But it also, I think the number one question that comes up is, how far are you from civilization? And it's like, we are civilization. That I got asked that not long ago. How far are you from civilization? And I don't know if they meant to use that word or were just sort of meaning, how far are you from town? But it was just the way it was posed. And I had to pause for a minute because I really didn't want to answer it smart.
Like a smart ass. I get you.
I had to sort of,
What do you think this is? Do you have any idea how much money we spent to build this place?
well, my first
To make it
response
feel like
was,
civilization?
yeah, but it was, my first response is, do you actually even know where you're going? It's like, have you even looked at the map to see where you're going? But probably not. Probably not.
But also, if you're from New York or you're from Los Angeles, even if they look at the map, it might be like that might feel like 1,000 miles from civilization.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
But
if they interesting.
I mean, we get asked, does the toilet flush? Does the AC work? It's like, do you have a coffee pot in the cabin? Does the stove work? It's like, yes. And it's every now and then we'll do a fun social media post that just kind of makes a bit of fun of different stuff. And we're looking at doing, every guest has a 50-50 chance of walking into the cabin, and when they walk in, a light bulb in the living room goes out, or those batteries in the Roku remote control die after they've turned the TV on. So we're looking at doing a bit of a fun reel, because we have on-site maintenance. He ran some batteries out to a guest last night at 8:00. The batteries died. So we thought we'd have a bit of fun with, and that's it. Doesn't matter. 10:00 at night, we go out and help a guest.
You could I think you could do some pretty funny little videos of kind of like the behind the scenes type of thing. Like, your maintenance guy running around with a pocket full of batteries. Or I remember I managed a resort off the coast of Belize, and we used the on-demand hot water heaters, but they were on the back of the building, and they were not so good, I guess, because of the pilot lights. Out of I think we had 8 cabins, and chances are one of them is going to be out any given morning. The pilot's going to blow out. So it used to be my job as a manager, because I couldn't get my staff to cooperate with me. So I would do it. So I'd get up before breakfast early, and I would go check all of the pilot lights on the water heaters to make sure that they were actually lit. And even then, one might blow out as soon as I walk away. So it was kind of that, every morning if someone was going to walk into the main lodge, yeah, we didn't have any hot water. And I'm like, man, I was just there 30 minutes ago. People don't realize what's going on behind the scenes sometimes.
No, and we'll get messages or phone calls. We've got no power. And I'm like, okay, have you not had power since you got there? No, it just went out. And I'm like, okay, I said, you didn't happen to have 2 women using hair dryers in each bathroom, someone using the microwave and boiling the kettle? Yeah, well, the girls were drying their hair. So I'm like, I'll get maintenance over there and we'll just flip the breaker for you. So it's you get that sort of thing all the time, just different sort of little quirky things. People turning up to their cabins early. My code doesn't work. Yes, that's because it doesn't activate until 2:30 and it's only 1:00. So I can't get in.
Yeah. The joys, like we were talking earlier about, A attaches to V in the engineering world. It's just a little different in the human world. So it sounds like you're figuring it out.
I love every minute of it.
Yeah.
Even no matter how bad or busy my day is, I love talking to that guest. I love seeing them walking around and talking to them. And I know sometimes when you're an owner and people know that you're the owner, they tell you what you want to hear. Well, Jeff and I, every couple of months, we'll actually check into a cabin and we'll walk around as guests and we talk to people and we talk to them as guests. We don't ask them any pertinent questions or anything like that.
You get the real feedback then, don't you?
Yeah. So we do undercover boss in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The staff knows who you are, but it's a great way. I mean, I have done that as well in some jobs where I just kind of show up as though I'm a guest. I used to go do site visits for properties that wanted to be endorsed by Orvis. And I would go there and the staff usually knew I was the guy from Orvis, but the guests didn't. So if I just go there and just hang out with the manager and the staff, they're going to show me how great their operation is. But if I go sit down next to the other guests at dinner and I say, oh, how was your fishing today? And they'll just start unloading the stuff. It's like, oh, that's the real truth. That's really what's going on. So
we have booked into a couple of our cabins under aliases. So the cleaner that's cleaning that cabin doesn't know us. But it's us going in there. So we've done little spot checks like that too. Our cleaners are fantastic, but every now and then I just do a bit of a check and they've got no idea that it's Jeff and I going in there.
Well, it keeps them on their toes because if they know you've done it in the past, you could do it again in the future. And I think there's a whole industry, and I'm sure there are people doing it, but in the bigger hotels, for sure, you have secret shoppers that go into the bigger resorts and hotels. But I think just even in our space where it's generally smaller, more intimate type of places, like, I'm a digital nomad. I was thinking, man, I should maybe I don't need to pay for Airbnbs or, rooms anymore. I could just bounce around and just, go visit these places, and I'll be doing my podcast episodes from the bedroom, but then I can give an honest, accurate report of kind of what the experience is. So if anybody's listening to this and looking for someone to do it, give me a call. Anyway.
Well, I'll tell you what, when you're back on the US side, you can come do a secret sleeper at our place.
All right. Right. Sounds very cool. I would love it. I did want to ask you before we go though, this particular property on, you said it was the Palo, what's the name of the cave?
The Duro.
Palo Duro.
Duro. Yeah.
Did you guys have a connection with that piece of property beforehand? Was it like, well, someone in the family? Was it Jeff's family or something? Or did you specifically go out and look for a piece of property to do this project?
Jeff originally, 2010, he was looking for somewhere that he could have as a getaway, just himself, somewhere to get away. So he got built the very first cabin, which is Fortress, which is probably one of our most popular cabins. It's absolutely gorgeous. Then he ended up having to go back to Austin for work. And so he put it onto VRBO. He thought, I don't want it sitting there empty. Consequently, he never got to come and stay back in his cabin when he wanted to. So he actually built a relationship with one of the builders out here who was good friends with a gentleman that owned a lot of the Marshall Ranch. So it was him and his passion for the area that grew through that, and then his vision, and the owner of the properties out here, and they still own a lot of land surrounding us here. He liked the vision that Jeff had. He liked the builder. The builder and the owner were very good friends. So Jeff became very good friends with them. And every year, Jeff thought, okay, this is it. And then they'd turn up and say, do you want to buy this 30 acres? Oh, yeah, okay. Well, let me build you these, and this is what we can do. And why don't you look at doing this? And, so 2010 was one. 2015, there was 5. From 2018 to 2020, we went from 5 to 20 cabins.
So much for his little retreat to get away from it all by himself.
Yeah. So that running 5 units is a piece of cake. Running 20, you can't run 20 like you can 5. That's where my skill set of project management, due diligence,
and all that good stuff,
processes, that's what's allowed us to actually develop even more than we were. To be able to provide the Kia Oro service, to be able to provide everything that we do, to do large events, corporate business meetings. I've got a couple of big board meetings for companies, and I can't say who, that are going to be on site for their board meetings. Sure. So you've got to have the staff, the passion, and the processes. And you can't miss one of those elements.
Yeah, you got to.
Otherwise, you can't create.
It just falls apart at some point. If you can't scale it and you can't make it work on that scale, you go 5 to 22, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, you're down to 0 because the bank took it away or whoever, right? I mean, it's a tough thing.
Now how we've got it set up at 20, we could comfortably take it to 30, 35 houses and run it in that same process. Once you get past that 30, 35, processes would have to change again. So, and a lot of people don't look at that. And even in a smaller scale, say you've got one short-term rental and then you go and buy another one, you can't clean both those houses yourself if they both depart in one day, and especially if they're apart from each other. So it's all about understanding logistics.
It's not just twice the work. It's oftentimes more than twice. It's like kids. Yeah, having one kid or having 2 kids, it's not twice as much work. It's like 3 or 4 times that thing. Yeah, and you say, oh, well, they'll keep each other company. Yeah, right. Now you've got fights to break up. One of them puts gum in the other one's hair, and it just gets, drastically more complicated. Sharyn, we've discussed a bunch of things. I know that you and I could just probably keep chatting all day. And I'm curious, what did I forget to ask you that maybe I've already asked you this and we kept going? I don't know. I don't even remember where we're at in the process. It was such a great conversation. But is there anything else I forgot to ask you that you want to make sure we cover?
I think we went through everything. I mean, we're about experiences, no matter what your experience is. And I think we covered all of that. And just getting service, and not just someone bringing a dinner plate to your table, actually getting good old-fashioned good mornings and hellos and thank yous and, all of that sort of stuff is service.
And there's a lot of people that just when you said getting good mornings and hellos and stuff like that, it occurred to me, it's like, it's not an everyday event in most people's lives, and when they go to a place where they do get it, it stands out. It's like, wow. And especially, maybe your staff, I don't know, but presumably probably knows people by name. Hey, morning, Mr. Jones, or hey, Mary, how are you doing today? How was the horseback riding yesterday? Who gets that in their normal life? Maybe if you go to week on Monday, maybe one of your colleagues might say, hey, did you do anything fun this weekend? But it's a special thing that kind of helps us reconnect with each other and as humans. So,
and that's the same here. You come here to disconnect, to reconnect.
Yeah, I love that.
If you're disconnecting is hiking and jeeping and everything, you are still disconnecting. That allows you to reconnect back to your busy life, because that is what immerses us now.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
We don't take the time to disconnect and reconnect.
It's a good way to leave it. That's wise message. So anybody listening to this, please, click on the link to in the show notes. Go take a look at the website. And if it's something that seems like if you want to disconnect to reconnect, it sounds like a great place to do it. Sharyn, I appreciate you. Look forward to working on some projects with you in the future, and doing that secret shopper thing is on my list. So I'll take you up on that. Sharyn, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
You are very welcome. Thank you, Jason.
I trust you enjoyed listening to the conversation as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you're enjoying the Big World Made Small podcast, please take a moment to tell the algorithm by subscribing and posting a review so that others can benefit as well. I also invite you to take a quick trip over to bigworldmadesmall.com and join our private adventure travel community to receive new episode notifications, special access to our guest experts, and perhaps even some exclusive partner offers that we haven't discussed on the podcast. I'll publish another episode soon. Until then, keep exploring. It's the best way to make a big world feel just a bit smaller.